A right triangle is a triangle with one angle that's 90 degrees. If I draw one, here's my right angle. This is the hypotenuse, and these are the legs. An acute angle is an angle less than 90 degrees. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at a right triangle, and we're going to talk about the trig functions that go along with it. So here's my angle right here, and I'm going to look at that angle, and this is always a hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is opposite the right angle. And then I have two sides. I have the side that's next to it and a side that's across from it. This is the adjacent leg, and this is the opposite leg. And I have 6 trigonometric functions I'm going to talk about. The first is the sine of that angle, and that's the opposite leg over the hypotenuse. I have the cosine of that angle. It's the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. I have the tangent of the angle, and that is the opposite leg over the adjacent leg. I have the cosecant of that angle. That is the hypotenuse over the opposite leg. I have the secant. That is the hypotenuse over the adjacent leg. And I have the cotangent, which is the adjacent side over the opposite leg. Sometimes we say so, ka, toa. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now I'm going to do an example of the fixed trig ratios. So I'm going to circle my angle. I'm going to label my hypotenuse, my opposite, and my adjacent. And I need to know what my hypotenuse is. I'm going to use my Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared, the two legs squared, equals hypotenuse squared. I have 9 plus 16 is c squared, or c squared is 25. So now I know my hypotenuse is 5. It's only the positive because it's a length. There's no negative lengths. So my sine of that angle is opposite over hypotenuse. My cosine of that angle is adjacent over hypotenuse. My tangent of that angle is opposite over adjacent. My cosecant of that angle is hypotenuse over opposite. My secant of that angle is hypotenuse over adjacent. And my cotangent of that angle is adjacent over opposite. And notice that these are all reciprocals. We'll talk about that later. Okay, now when I have these, I have my angle. Here's my opposite side. Here's my adjacent side, and here's my hypotenuse. I need to find my other side, so I know that 2 squared plus x squared is 4 squared. I have 4 plus x squared is 16, or x squared is 12, so x is radical 12, which is the same as 2 radical 3. So this is 2 radical 3. So my sine of that angle is opposite over hypotenuse, and we can reduce that to radical 3 over 2. My cosine of that angle is adjacent over hypotenuse, which reduces to 1/2, and my tangent of that angle is opposite over adjacent, which reduces to radical 3. So I could do the other ones. I know that it's going to be 4 over 2 radical 3, which is 2 over radical 3, and I can rationalize the denominator, which becomes 2 radical 3 over 3, and I can do the other two similarly.